This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
All right, and welcome to the GSMC Sports Podcast. This episode is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network, and as always, I am your host, Jesse Tapia. All right, it is a very lovely Wednesday, here. It's June 6th, and we got Game 3 of the NBA Finals going on tonight. We will be talking about that later on in the show, probably in the next segment. This segment, we're actually going to start off with some soccer. We got the U.S. Soccer Federation signing their new GM, the first GM in the organization's history, Ernie Stewart. All right, I got some thoughts on that. So we'll be talking about that for the first segment. Like I said, we'll talk about Game 3 for the second segment. Third segment, we'll talk about DeMarcus Cousins a bit. DeMarcus Cousins, I think he's, near 30 years old right now. Going to be coming off of an Achilles injury for this next season. And he's a free agent. What market is out there for him right now being an older player with an Achilles injury? All right. And it's not like he's some small player or anything like that. The guy is near 7 feet tall. So he's 27 right now. All right, near 7 feet tall. And coming off an Achilles injury, that's not necessarily the best combo. So we'll talk about that, talk about what kind of market there is for him. Also, we got Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith has decided to throw the Boston Celtics into the mix for people going after LeBron, teams going after LeBron. I think his list right now is at 7. It'd be Golden State, Boston, Houston, LA, Philly, Cleveland, and I think Miami's like a 7th team or whatnot. So we'll probably discuss that a bit, possibly in the third segment or even the fourth. And then, for the fourth, how we usually do, we'll be talking about anything else going on in the world of sports. So that's how the show's going to go. All right. Like I said, there's not too much exactly happening right now in the world of sports. Summertime usually is a slower time. We don't have the NFL. Basketball's winding down right now. All right. But nonetheless, let's get into it. Let's talk soccer. So obviously, we got the World Cup coming up. Teams from CONCACAF who made it. Mexico, Costa Rica, Panama. Mexico, as usual, making it there. I mean, there's no reason why they ever shouldn't. Costa Rica have become a very good team in CONCACAF, so them making it, once again, is not surprising considering the fact that even in the 2014 World Cup, they ended up making it to the quarterfinals, and I believe they lost to the Netherlands in penalties. All right, so Costa Rica has done well over the years, probably over the last decade or so, to develop a very solid team. Panama, last World Cup qualifier come around for the 2014 one. Obviously, we had Mexico, who almost missed out. They end up making it because Panama ends up losing to the U.S. in the final night of match day of qualifying. If you remember, I think it was Graham Zusi, who hit the game winner that sent Mexico over to play New Zealand in order to qualify that way. But nonetheless, Panama now now in the World Cup come 2018. All right, little redemption for them compared to 2014. One CONCACAF team who obviously is not participating is the U.S., And their 2018 qualifying run was terrible, to say the least. All right, we saw a managerial change going from Klinsmann to Bruce Arena. Didn't really like that one at all. I don't understand why you recycle managers, but nonetheless, they went with Bruce Arena. His job, get the team into the World Cup. If anything, Bruce Arena did about as poor as a job than Klinsmann, and there was no real fight from this U.S. team. Okay? And I'm not a U.S. fan or anything like that. Obviously, I'm from here and all that, but that's not my team, my national team I root for. But nonetheless, I thought from the outside looking in that getting rid of Klinsmann was probably the worst move to make. Okay, I understand that the team wasn't necessarily playing well, but I think that was more so the talent than Klinsmann. Okay, because we really never saw a difference when Bruce Arena took over. All right, and maybe it's just back-to-back bad managers, but I feel like Klinsmann probably still would have found a way to get this U.S. team into the World Cup. All right, nonetheless, it didn't happen. Now they missed out, and now basically it's like starting from the ground up with the U.S. team. Okay, had a couple of friendlies this past week. I believe, they had Bolivia and Ireland. Lost to Ireland, beat Bolivia, and now it's just more so, since you're not preparing for the World Cup, your job is to get these younger players ready to go by the time 2022 gets here, okay, or by the next World Cup qualifying matches. All right, and this is something that probably should have never happened with the U.S., given the money that they make and all, and given that they should be better than teams like Trinidad and Tobago, should be better than Panama. Okay, they should be on the level as a Costa Rica or Mexico, but have simply struggled too. Okay, so obviously they created the GM position, and now, like I said, they're bringing in Ernie Stewart. Let's see, he was a former national team player, also has some front office experience, was a sporting director of the Philadelphia Union, and he will begin his job on August 1st for the U.S. team, for the U.S. Federation, I should say. Okay, basically, his job, as it's been told to us, is to pretty much lead the managerial search as to who's going to be taking over for the team. Also, he's got to deal with scouting and deals with scouting and also how they play tactically. Okay, at least he's going to have some input. And I think that as far as scouting, the U.S. has done well, except they don't do well to develop. Okay, I think it's a problem where we had Michael Bradley, Josie Altidore, guys like that pretty much just stuck in the lineup year after year after year. Okay, there was no real difference there. All right, we've seen guys like Bobby Wood come up and whatnot, but they just struggled to get regular playing time. I think that was a problem for the U.S. All right, obviously in the matches that mean something, the Gold Cup tournaments or whatnot, sure, you play your veterans, but I feel like in the ones that don't matter, where they're just international friendlies and they're not really friendlies to help you prepare for anything, throw out the younger guys rather than throwing out Michael Bradley and all those guys again. I thought that was a big problem by the U.S. I don't think they did enough to get their younger players some playing time, okay, rather than just Pulisic, who, that's great, but nonetheless, like I said, you want to try and develop those other younger guys, okay? I think coaching is something that I'm not sure. It was weird. I feel like Klinsmann and maybe the Federation weren't on the same page. It just seemed something was off with the way Klinsmann was trying to run that team. So obviously you need to get someone on there who has the same ideas and all that. Pretty much just someone who's going to help contribute and be on the same page. All right. But I think that development is probably the biggest problem with the U.S., and that's something that they need to really fix up on with this next manager and all that. Okay, because obviously you're probably not going to see Michael Bradley, Josie Altidore, Clint Dempsey, or any of those guys again with the national team. I mean, what's the point of even playing them? Okay. But now it's going to be real interesting to see whether or not the U.S., these younger guys, truly are up to the task. Okay. And also, I think the U.S. needs to try and get more players over to Europe. Okay, I understand that they're trying to make the MLS on par with the European leagues and all, but given that they don't have the promotion or relegation, or don't necessarily run their leagues the same way that these other European leagues run, it's going to be difficult. It seems like the U.S. is basically trying to reinvent the wheel. Okay, and I think another problem with the U.S. was delusion. Okay, I think that as the Federation we're trying to reach the wrong goals, meaning trying to elevate the MLS to be as good or if not better than the leagues in Europe, whereas they probably should have been taking baby steps. Okay. Right now, I wouldn't even say that they're better than the Liga MX. You constantly have Liga MX teams winning the CONCACAF Champions League, and they always seem to do well against these MLS teams. Focus on that. Build up towards that. Okay. And I think, like I said, it's just a big old thing of delusion, thinking that they were ready to compete with other national teams in Europe, whereas they weren't even a top 2 team in CONCACAF, whereas they should be every single time. Okay? They were no better than Costa Rica or Mexico, and I feel like they look past them in a way. I think the U.S. really needs to look at hand at where are they truly right now as a team, okay, as a national team and all that. And I think, like I said, a lot of it has to do with delusion as to why they didn't end up making the World Cup. Okay? But, I mean, this is a step in the right direction. I mean, I'm more curious to see who exactly they're going to be bringing in as the manager. Okay? I would not be surprised if Mexico's manager, Juan Carlos Osorio, ends up with the U.S. after the World Cup. And I think that would be the right man for that job. I think he's been probably Mexico's best manager, probably within the last decade, honestly. Okay? He has a plan and has a certain set of tactics that he focuses on. I think that's what the U.S. needs really right there, just a bunch of organization. So we'll see what ends up happening, but nonetheless, it is a step in the right direction. Like I said, the biggest thing is the U.S. has got to develop their younger players. You can't just keep sticking with the same veterans week after week, year after year. It's got to change up at least. Okay? So we'll see what ends up happening. Nonetheless, I know it's going to hurt for U.S. fans not being able to watch them in the World Cup, but I'm sure we got the Gold Cup or Copa America coming up maybe next summer or whatnot. So there will be tournaments to come, and I'm very curious to see how the younger players of the U.S. play. Like, say, they end up they play in the Gold Cup. Maybe they face off with Mexico, like the first team or whatnot. I'm curious to see how they'd respond to that. But anyway, we'll see what ends up happening. So we're going to wrap it up here. Next up, like I said, we got Game 3 going on tonight. I'll give my thoughts on it, see what Cleveland's got to do. So stay tuned, and I will be right back.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. We spent that first segment talking about the U.S. Soccer Federation hiring their new GM. All right, Ernie Stewart, step in the right direction. Of course, still got to find a manager who can take this team to the depths it needs to, okay? Or meaning they need to be one of the best teams in CONCACAF. So we'll see. We still got to wait on that. That's one I'm more so waiting to see what exactly happens. And I think that's probably the most crucial part of this whole process. Of course, now they're trying to develop the youth and all that, but you do need the right manager for it. So we'll see what ends up happening. Really hope it's not someone recycled. I hope this is someone new and all. All right, Klinsmann, I guess, was someone new. But, of course, I think they fired him a little prematurely. At least should have given him the opportunity to at least try to qualify rather than firing him early into qualifying. But nonetheless, it's not my job, so there's that. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. But nonetheless, now we're going to be talking Game 3 going on tonight. Last game we had was on Sunday. Okay, it feels like it's been years since the last time we've seen the Warriors and Cavs play. But nonetheless, finally tonight. All right, we had Monday, Tuesday, and now finally here we got Game 3. Warriors are up 2-0. I mean, no real surprises here. I mean, you'd expect the Warriors to win both games at home. Of course, in game one, Cavs did have a opportunity to pull out the win. Obviously, that opportunity was taken away by some bad basketball IQ. We're not going to get into it because it already happened, but nonetheless, J.R. Smith, we are talking about you here, okay? But like I said, it's 2-0. There's no real surprises here. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people wanted Cleveland to probably take one game at Oracle, given that you just want to see a decent series, and that's kind of the impression I was under, at least for me. I did want to see Cleveland take that game one just so we could see maybe them coming back to Cleveland tied 1-1. So at least I have a little bit of hope saying maybe this could go 7 or 6 games. I could care less about who wins. That doesn't matter to me. I just want to see a decent series. All right. But nonetheless, now, I mean, in reality, it's Cleveland's got to go out and win both of these games to get it past game 5. Okay. Cleveland only picks up one win out of these next 2, then I think the series is over in 5 games at Oracle. All right. And I've been trying to think of ways that Cleveland could win. And there are ways, but it's just a matter of, can you really count on it? Okay? Because, I mean, if you look at Cleveland right now, who's their third option? You got LeBron, who gets his. Kevin Love, who's been playing well. Who's been good after that? Okay? So far in these first 2 games. Would you say it's George Hill? Maybe. He had 7 points in game, or 7 points, I think, in game 2? Had 15, or like 12 in game 1. That's not great. All right. Jeff Green hasn't really done much. Kyle Korver has turned into a magician and just made himself disappear. J.R. Smith isn't really someone to count on anymore. He's really struggled all season long, so I'm not really expecting him to step up. Larry Nance was good in game 1, bad in game 2. Jordan Clarkson just seemingly forgot how to shoot a basketball, or at least how to make a shot. Rodney Hood hasn't really been given an opportunity. Okay, just been given a bunch of garbage time minutes. Seems like it's messed with him mentally. But nonetheless, seems like he is going to be getting a lot of playing time in game 3. Could that possibly be the Cleveland Cavaliers spark? It's not likely, but I wouldn't be shocked. Rodney Hood is a very good role player, or at least he was with Utah. Okay, he's not a starter or anything like that. Okay, he needs to realize, at least it's my opinion, that his career will be set if he figures out, yes, I'm a role player and I need to excel coming off the bench. Okay, and I think that's basically what Cleveland got him for. Cleveland tried starting him a couple times after the trade and all that, and I was thinking that, I mean, you can't really move a guy from his bench role to the starting 5. He's just not a starting 5 player. And we've seen that with guys like Jamal Crawford. Okay, Jamal Crawford has basically been a 6-man his entire career. There were a couple times, I feel, where the Clippers tried giving him a permanent starting 5 role, but you could just tell it wasn't really working out. Jamal Crawford is better suited to come off the bench, and that's why we've seen him in the league so long. Rodney Hood needs to take the Jamal Crawford role, okay? Fix up your shot and do well coming off the bench. You do that, you're going to be in the league for a long time, all right? But I would not be surprised, though, if he ends up getting the start tonight. I think that J.R. Smith has just been bad enough to where you got to try and come up with some other option. Jordan Clarkson has been just as bad as J.R. Smith, along with Kyle Korver. The only one that we really haven't seen too much is Rodney Hood, given he has played bad while he's been in this postseason, but nonetheless, I mean, we haven't seen him yet in this series. Okay? And like I said, I mean, in order for Cleveland to win tonight, you're going to need a third man to step up, because, I mean, if Cleveland's going to have any shot, like, let's go back to game 1, okay? Cleveland kept it close throughout the game and had an opportunity to win it at the very end. LeBron had a near 50-point triple-double by the end of the fourth quarter, and they didn't even have that, like, a lead. All right? Just think about it. LeBron has to have probably one of his best all-time games in the postseason in order for this team to have a chance. Okay, so going into game 3, LeBron's got to drop at least 40+. Like, that's at the very least. Okay, him dropping anything less than 40 is not going to help, because you're not going to have these other guys stepping up. So at the very least, like I said, you got to have LeBron drop 40+ and at least a triple-double or something near there. And when I say near, like 40-something plus points, okay? At least 10 assists, and the near would be like the 9 rebounds or 8 rebounds. All right. Obviously, Kevin Love going to have to go out and drop 20 and 10 again, which he's done the first 2 games, and I think he's going to be able to. Kevin Love has been very under the radar so far in the series, but nonetheless has played well. And I think we only talk about Kevin Love when it's entertaining too, meaning when he's not playing well. It's always good to go after the guy, but I mean, we do need to start talking about Kevin Love as far as this series, although it hasn't really mattered because I guess they haven't won. All right, and they also need some third option to step up, okay? It can't just be the LeBron and Kevin Love show anymore. You need someone else to do something. Larry Nance did well in Game 1. George Hill did well in Game 1. And everyone else was pretty invisible, but nonetheless, you did have a couple of other guys who stepped up. That's what the Cavs need today. Okay, the Cavs are more than capable of beating the Warriors. They really are. That's why we haven't seen them really get blown out the first 2 games. Except for Game 2, but Cleveland kept it close up until, I guess, Golden State broke it open in the 4th, so I guess that doesn't really matter. All right. But nonetheless, Cleveland just needs these guys to play like they're NBA players. Okay? George Hill needs to step up. Act like he was the second best player on Utah last season, or at least the second option on offense. All right? George Hill, I don't think, forgot how to score. I just think he needs to get into it more. Okay? Rodney Hood did well in Utah. Why not do better here? Okay, Jordan Clarkson, who was a very good scorer for the Lakers, just seemingly forgot how to score with the Cavs. Fix it. All right, Larry Nance, be aggressive on the rebounding and all that. Tristan Thompson, all right, don't let him get any easy points within the paint. Kevin Love, do your thing. Kyle Korver, do yours, catch and shoot. All right, these guys on the Cavs have all been in the league for quite some time. All right, except for guys like Clarkson and Nance, but nonetheless, they've done well so far in their NBA careers up until they got to Cleveland. And with Cleveland, I think that it might just be a thing where maybe these guys are intimidated to play with LeBron. I mean, I don't think we've ever really talked about that before, okay? But nonetheless, it's got to be a lot of pressure playing with a guy like that, okay? J.R. Smith has come out and said that, yeah, it is. Also made light of it or whatnot. J.R. Smith's been in the league for a while, okay? I don't think J.R. Smith really cares who he's playing with. But unless the guys like Jordan Clarkson, Larry Nance, Rodney Hood, I mean, going from Utah and a bad LA team over to Cleveland where your goal is to go out and win the title with LeBron James, that's got to cause some nerves, I'd assume. All right? And I think that might be what's going on here. All right? But even then, so I mean, Ty Lue's got to figure out something for tonight's game. It can't just be the same rotations and all. You got to throw something out there. And plus, it's going to be a whole lot more difficult now, too, given the fact that Andre Iguodala is most likely going to be playing tonight. All right, seems like he's back from injury, so that's going to be another monkey wrench in there for Cleveland. And Andre Iguodala has always done well to guard LeBron James. And I'm not saying that he's going to keep LeBron James to under 20 points or whatnot, but it's going to be difficult for LeBron James to get 40-plus on a guy like Andre Iguodala. And I do think that is a requirement for Cleveland to win tonight. All right, LeBron, like I said, needs to get at least 40-plus and at least a triple-double or somewhere near there. All right. So we'll see what ends up happening. I mean, I'm not really expecting much from Cleveland. I did pick the Warriors in 5 games before the series started. All right. But I don't see it. I don't see how Cleveland can beat this team. I understand that LeBron can go out and have a great game, and so can Kevin Love, but that still isn't enough to beat the Warriors. You need other contributions from your team, and Cleveland just simply hasn't gotten that, and I don't have enough faith in those other guys in order to get that done. Okay? And that's just the biggest thing right there. There just hasn't been enough consistent contributions, productions from these role players of Cleveland. That's been their biggest problem all postseason long. I still don't know how they've made it this far. Okay, literally in round 1 against the Pacers, no one played well besides LeBron. LeBron single-handedly beat that team. Round 2 against the Raptors, it's just the Raptors. I don't know what it is with that team going up against LeBron James, but they just shrink. So that's a wash. All right, and then you beat a Celtics team in the Eastern Conference Finals where you were down 2-0, and no one was really playing well besides LeBron, of course. All right. So it's been tough for them to make it this far. I mean, I can't just write them off yet because there is a chance that maybe they win these next 2 games. A chance, but it's a very small chance where you're going to need a lot of stuff to happen that hasn't happened so far, like go down. So we'll see what ends up happening. But nonetheless, my pick for tonight, I mean, the Warriors are favored by 4. I'd go with the Warriors tonight. I can't trust Cleveland to win. All right, I'm expecting a sweep. I picked them in 5, so we'll see what ends up happening. But it's going to be tough for Cleveland to pull out a couple of wins here, especially even if it's at home. So we'll see what ends up going down. But nonetheless, we're going to wrap it up here. Next up, we're going to be talking about some free agent stuff. Talking about DeMarcus Cousins. Stephen A. Smith is out here name-dropping teams for LeBron to possibly go to. So stay tuned for that, and I will be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. So far today, we've talked about the U.S. Soccer Federation hiring their new GM, Ernie Stewart. I don't really have any true opinions on the hiring. I mean, it seems like he has the qualifications good enough to do the job. I'm just more so concerned with who he hires as the manager. All right, I'm also curious to see exactly just curious to see how the U.S. Soccer Federation develops going forward. All right, missing the World Cup was one of the biggest, probably the biggest embarrassment in their history. All right, at least for the men's team. The women's team makes the World Cup every time and seemingly has an opportunity to win it every time. They really got to fix up that men's side. So we'll see what ends up going on there. Okay, second segment, we talked about Game 3 between Cleveland and Golden State. More so just talked about Cleveland's side of it, what they need to do in order to win tonight. We'll see if they're able to get it done. I think that game starts, at 6 o'clock? Yes, 6 o'clock Pacific time, 9 o'clock Eastern time. I could not imagine, watching a game, like the finals game, and it'd be around midnight, all right, as I'm finishing it up. I'm going to finish this game around, 9 o'clock today. The game should be over around that time, and I still have about a couple more hours of my day left. I mean, it's just, that's one of the pluses of living on the West Coast, except all the media is on the East, so I guess that's where I get the short end of the stick. But nonetheless, all right. Now we're going to be talking some NBA free agency. It's never too early for that. You already got Adrian Wojnarowski dropping teams as to where DeMarcus Cousins could end up. Also, you got Stephen A. Smith pretty much naming all the teams LeBron James is probably going to be meeting with this summer. All right. And there's no time off for NBA offseason talk, I figure. There's always something coming out. All right. But as far as DeMarcus Cousins goes, what's his value? Okay. I think he's 27 right now. Has never been on a winning team. Has always put up very solid stats. But it's just more so he hasn't really done anything, I guess, in his career so far. All right. And let me look at his career stats and all that and see exactly what we got here. I've always thought of DeMarcus Cousins as, if he played on a good team, okay, a team that made the playoffs, he'd already have an MVP. All right. So over his career, he's averaged 21, 11, and 3. In 2017, 2018, this year, before he tore his Achilles, he was averaging 25 points, 13 rebounds, and 5.5 assists. All right. Was basically almost having a career year here. And of course, over with Sacramento, he averaged about 21 points, about 11 rebounds, 3 assists. I think the most points he averaged in a season was nearly 28. He averaged 27.8, had 10 rebounds that year averaged, and then 5 assists. All right. So obviously, DeMarcus Cousins has been a very good NBA center, okay, if not the best in the league. And it seemed like this was the year he was finally going to make the playoffs. Of course, like I said, he ends up tearing his Achilles. Okay. And the sad part about that is that he's a 7-footer, and it's usually difficult to come back from an injury like that, especially being that height. Okay, he's 27, so he's still relatively young. I guess this is like the middle part of his prime. All right. And I'm just curious to see what he ends up doing this season. Okay. Meaning you could sign with a contender, but you're not going to be getting a max deal from a contender. All right. Front offices from that are with contending teams usually don't make bad decisions. Okay. And I think that bringing in DeMarcus Cousins, signing him to a max after you're not really sure what he's going to play like after his torn Achilles is a bad decision. So that's why you're probably going to see him, if he goes to a contender, signing like a 1-year, prove to me that you're still good to go type of deal, and then after that, we'll sign you to a long-term deal. Okay? Because like I said, it's not like he's relatively old or anything like that. He still does have enough time to sign one more long-term max deal. All right? But then you got teams like the Mavericks where they could just end up signing him to a max deal before he plays another game. Okay? And if I'm DeMarcus Cousins, I'd be seriously considering that. All right? Because you never want to be the player who lost out on all this money because of injury. All right? We see this all the time with players. They'll bet on themselves. It won't work out, and then they won't get that extra payday. Okay? If you're DeMarcus Cousins, I understand that you're probably thinking you could come back stronger and all that. But two, you also got to realize, look at the people before you, look at the people who've dealt with this injury and see how well they've done. And if you're DeMarcus Cousins' agent, you got to be in his ear pretty much letting him know every situation. Okay? Letting him know that, yeah, you could bet on yourself, but not too many people come back from this injury, or you could cash out here with the Mavericks, be their best player, and get paid. All right? And I guess it all just comes down to what's more important to the player. DeMarcus Cousins has already had a max contract with the Kings, so it's just a matter of if he wants to make more money or if he's ready to start winning. All right? And who knows, maybe you could see, actually, no, there's no way a contender signs him to a max deal after coming off an Achilles injury. Yeah, there's no way that happens. But nonetheless, I mean, do I think that DeMarcus Cousins could come back from this? I think he could. Do I think he will? I'm not necessarily sure. Okay, like I said, like in past, you've never really seen players come back from an injury like this, especially at being 7 feet tall, and be the same player that they were. All right, Kobe tore his Achilles, and after that was pretty much done. Was never the same. Okay. So as far as DeMarcus Cousins goes, I mean, it stinks that it happened to him, given that it seemed like he was finally going to start winning with the Pelicans. All right, who knows? Maybe DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis could have gave the Warriors some fits. We'll never know about it. But nonetheless, I mean, I saw that the Pelicans would be interesting in bringing back Cousins, but it'd be more so for like the 1 year, prove it. If you do well, we'll sign you to a max type deal. I also saw that Anthony Davis, if he does stay in New Orleans, does want DeMarcus Cousins back there, so that could be a factor in it all too, as far as the Pelicans bringing him back. So we'll see what ends up happening there as far as DeMarcus Cousins. You even got Isaiah Thomas. He was asked about it on Twitter, saying if he would want to team up with DeMarcus Cousins once again. Isaiah Thomas said he'd be down for that. But, I mean, even then, so Isaiah Thomas is another interesting guy to talk about when it comes to free agency. Okay? Thomas went from being a short player in the NBA who averaged around 20 points a game with Phoenix and Sacramento to a guy who goes to Boston, gets way better, averages near 30, has one of the best offensive seasons in that franchise's history, which in itself is something ridiculous given that you've had guys like Larry Bird go through there and all that. But nonetheless, has one of the best seasons ever there. Okay. Gets traded to Cleveland for Kyrie Irving. Finds out that his hip injury is going to take a whole lot longer to heal. Gets traded to LA. Doesn't really work out. And now here he is in free agency. All right. Where it seems his hip is barely healed. And with Isaiah Thomas, it's just what's his value going to be? Okay. Isaiah Thomas was looking like, let's say that Isaiah Thomas doesn't hurt his hip with Boston. He probably gets the max somewhere. Okay. I understand that he's only about 5'5" or whatnot. I think his scouting report and all that lists him at 5'9", but there's no way that Isaiah Thomas is 5'9". All right. But unless he'd be a player who'd be getting near max money, at least. I mean, you go out and average 30 per game in a season. That doesn't happen by accident. Okay. And now it's just a matter of he's not getting anywhere near the max, and I'm not even sure if he gets a yearly salary in the double digits as far as millions go. All right. Isaiah Thomas probably had about as bad as a contract year as you could as an NBA player. All right, not working out in Cleveland, getting the boot there and coming off the bench in LA when they're not even a great team. That's not a good look. Okay. But now I guess it's just him trying to find the best possible deal. I don't see him taking less money with a contender. I think he's going to go wherever he could get paid. Okay. And a team like Indiana maybe makes sense for him. Put him up with Victor Oladipo. I think that would work out well. All right, let's see. Anywhere else? I mean, teams like Dallas, those bad teams out there who maybe are looking to fill up seats. Let's see. Who else would be a solid fit? I think Indiana right now would be the best fit. Maybe a team like Orlando who needs a point guard. I don't know. It's going to be tough. There's not going to be that huge of a market for Isaiah Thomas. Maybe he could end up back in LA. Maybe a reunion with Boston where he could be the backup and they trade Terry Rozier since he's going to be a free agent after the upcoming season. Who knows? All right. But either way, it is going to be very difficult for Isaiah Thomas to get what he wants on the open market. All right. And we did mention Stephen A. Smith talking about LeBron James. We're just going to push that over to the next segment along with talking about anything else going on in the world of sports. So stay tuned for that, and I will be right back.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. So far today, we've talked about the U.S. Soccer Federation hiring their new GM, Ernie Stewart. We talked about Game 3 in between Cleveland and Golden State in the second segment, and then we spent the third segment talking about DeMarcus Cousins, his little free agency market, and also Isaiah Thomas. All right, now we're going to be talking about anything else going on in the world of sports, okay? Nothing really going on in the tennis or golf side of the world. We don't have Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Final coming up till tomorrow. They got their two-day break from Monday. And we already talked about Game 3, so let's see what else is going on right now. How about the NBA refs? Okay, the refs union, they got a Twitter account. It is under the @ official NBA refs. They're going to be doing like a little watch party type of thing where they will be live tweeting the game and fans can go and tweet at them and they will explain calls and all that. What could possibly go wrong here? All right. I mean, if I'm the refs, I try and stay away from things like this because there is going to be a call tonight that is missed or a bad call will be made and fans will tweet about it. And these refs are going to have to try and explain that. Okay. I don't necessarily think that this is the right way to go about it if they're trying to fix the relationship. Honestly, what I think that the NBA needs to do is to force refs to hold press conferences after games. Why not do that? Okay? It's not like it'll affect their I guess jobs or anything like that. I mean, we have NBA players do it, don't we? Of course. And I don't think it'd really be about... I think it'd keep refs too on their toes as far as the calls they're making. All right. I think it's the right thing to do. But nonetheless, I mean, this whole ref watch party thing where they're going to interact with the fans, do they not realize how unliked they are? Not NBA refs, like, specifically, but just refs as a whole. I mean, growing up playing sports... I never was really a fan of the refs. All right, can you tell me, as you were growing up in sports, that you liked referees? I feel like referees are probably the most hated figures in sports. Okay. Honestly, I don't think I've ever seen a fan go, oh yeah, that's a great referee right there. All right, but nonetheless, I mean, this is what they're doing. They want to live tweet the game. They better hope that no one makes a bad call. Otherwise, they're never going to hear the end of it. So, we'll see. I mean, it's just something to bring up. It's a nice little tidbit, obviously, in the whole social media thing. We're still waiting on the whole Brian Colangelo situation to finish up. I'm not sure when that's going to happen. I don't know. I'd be surprised to see if they did a little news dump. I think that'd be the right thing to do is actually just to dump it today. All right? If they came up with their decision. Give the result of it. If you're going to fire him, let it out today. So that way the NBA Finals kind of takes over it, and it's not really a big media circus type of thing. But I don't know, this whole Colangelo thing could end up, well, I mean, once he's fired or not fired, could still be a bit of a circus, just given that you're going to answer questions as to what happened in the investigation, what exactly they found out, unless they're just going to keep it in-house, which I really hope they don't. I really want to know exactly what was going on here. Because like I said, this is probably the weirdest NBA story I've ever heard of. And we've had a lot of weird NBA stories this year, too. Bobby Portis punching Nikola Mirotic, pretty much fracturing his face. Markelle Fultz, that whole little situation. Kawhi Leonard. I mean, we had Eric Bledsoe also. Remember in the beginning of the year tweeting, I don't want to be here. That got him traded to the Bucks. Let's see, are there any other stories I'm missing? I think that's pretty much it right there. Derrick Rose, didn't he take a little break from the Cavs for a couple weeks? So there's been a lot of very odd stories this year. All right. And I think that's just a combination of us just being in the social media age right now. All right, social media has really played a big part in professional sports. So that's all I got to say about that. Nonetheless, I mean, we had Stephen A. Smith today talking about, I believe it was on First Take, talking about how LeBron James probably will be talking with the Golden State Warriors and could be talking with the Boston Celtics. Okay, going into it before today, I figured that the top 4 teams for LeBron would be Philly, Cleveland, LA, and Houston. Now you add Golden State and Boston into the mix, I guess. Boston doesn't really make sense to me as far as the whole LeBron James sweepstakes. I mean, it's a possibility, but it doesn't make sense with the plan that Boston has tried to come up with. Okay? Obviously, we had the process over in Philly, and Boston has had their own little type of process here as where they're not, I guess... I don't know, it's been weird because Boston has basically ended up with the same kind of assets as Philly, but was never really as bad as them. Okay? Like Boston obtained, obviously, now that I think about it too, though, the Sixers didn't have the Nets to go and trade with. All right? I forget that. I just realized that right now. Okay? I forgot. Obviously, Boston has had not number 1 picks or anything like that, but top 5 picks for like the last couple of years. But I forget that the Sixers didn't have the opportunity to trade with Billy King and take 4 first-round unprotected picks, which in itself is highly ridiculous. I mean, looking back at that trade, you're telling me that the Nets GM thought it would be a good idea to give up 4 first-round picks that were unprotected for 3 aging veterans, like extremely aging veterans, like on the back end of their career, aging veterans, and Paul Pierce, Garnett, and Jason Terry? Really? Like, he really thought that was going to work with Deron Williams and Joe Johnson I mean, that's tough. It really is. All right. Billy King never going to find himself another job in the NBA as far as being a GM. All right. But nonetheless, I did forget that is how Boston basically jump-started their process. That trade doesn't happen. I mean, Boston is nowhere near as good as they are now. All right. And that really allowed them to go out and play hard and still have an opportunity to rebuild. I mean, Boston could make win-now moves and also make for-the-future moves at the same time, which is a little bit ridiculous. All right. But like I said, I mean, going back to LeBron, it doesn't make sense. Okay? Because the money doesn't work. You can't keep Horford, Hayward, Kyrie there and bring in LeBron. You'd have to get rid of either Horford or Hayward. And, I mean, if you want to get rid of Horford, then you could try. And the only way it works is if they did a sign and trade with LeBron. But it's just, I don't see it happening. Okay, because then you have another hole at the center position. And you think, oh, maybe they could trade Hayward. They're not trading Hayward. There's no way that happens. You just signed him to a max deal. He's got a real good relationship with Brad Stevens. There's just absolutely no way that they trade Hayward. I think, honestly, Boston just needs to stay away from the whole LeBron James sweepstakes, and maybe it's just Stephen A. Smith making up stories. I'm not entirely sure. Okay? But I think with the team Boston's got now, adding Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving, they do have an opportunity to go and compete for the finals next season. Okay? And I don't necessarily think they need to worry about other teams in the East. I mean, Philly's a team you got to watch for, but I think with this whole Brian Colangelo story, that might shy LeBron away. I think LeBron probably will end up out west. Okay, and then you had Stephen A. Smith bringing up the Warriors as a possibility. That, I mean, if they're willing to get rid of Draymond Green and Klay Thompson, I guess. I don't think you can give Klay Thompson the deal that he's looking for and bring in LeBron James. And I think that Draymond Green's already on a max deal right now, or at least a big money contract, so I don't think you can really bring in LeBron James that way. All right, Stephen A. Smith said that the Warriors are thinking of a big three of Steph, KD, and LeBron. And that's where you cancel the NBA season. Okay? If we put the top 5 players on one team, I mean top 2 players in KD and LeBron, that's where you cancel the season because there's absolutely no way anyone beats that team in a 7-game series. No way whatsoever. All right? I mean, imagine Steph playing off the ball with LeBron. KD already playing off the ball. LeBron can play off the ball with Steph controlling it. Okay, KD's still fine standing in the 3-point line, just waiting for the ball to come his way if he needs it. I mean, that'd be a little bit ridiculous there. It'd be like a mashup of if the Miami super team joined the Golden State super team and all that. It'd be a little ridiculous. All right. But of course, Stephen A. Smith says that they are going to have a meeting. I'll go back to that Chris Haynes article where he pretty much tweeted that it's a possibility that they take a meeting with him. But I don't know. If you're the Warriors, how do you take a meeting knowing that you're going to have to get rid of either Draymond or Klay in order to get LeBron there? Okay. I think that would hurt the core of that team a bit. Wouldn't you think so? If they're taking meetings with LeBron, I mean, there's no way that they actually think that they could keep all of those guys on the same team. All right. And if they did, it'd take a lot of pay cuts, but I'm not sure that's going to happen either. So we'll see what ends up happening. But, I mean, as far as Boston and Golden State, I'd say that that's like a low as far as the possibility of LeBron ending up there. I'd say right now, Houston probably has the best odds. Then LA, Philly, then Cleveland. I don't see LeBron going back to Cleveland unless they bring in some superstar before LeBron has an opportunity to leave. All right. Obviously, Cleveland could offer LeBron the most money, but I don't really see him going back there. It's going to be very interesting, though. And that's probably going to be one of the bigger stories that everyone's paying attention to. Well, it will be the biggest story that everyone's paying attention to once the finals is over. And, I mean, it's going to be close. Finals could be over this week. I think we got Game 3 going on tonight, Game 4 on Friday. Let me see when a Game 5 would be. Game 5 would have to be, like, on Monday, I'm assuming, if they had the 2-day break. Let's see, Friday. Yeah, so Game 5 would be on Monday. I don't know. We're almost into off-season mode where we'll be able to be talking about what's going on with LeBron. All right, but nonetheless, Stephen A. Smith's already kind of getting it going, so we're actually going to wrap it up here. Today we talked about Ernie Stewart being named as the first GM of U.S. Soccer. Second segment, we talked about Game 3 between Cleveland and Golden State. Segment 4, we talked about DeMarcus Cousins and Isaiah Thomas as far as free agency goes. And this segment, we talked about a couple of other things going on in sports. Talked about LeBron, Boston, and Golden State being teams who could take meetings with him. Also talked about the refs deciding to engage with the fans on Twitter during Game 3. I mean, I don't see that working. But nonetheless, that's how the show went on today. So thanks for listening to the GSMC Sports Podcast. As always, I am your host, Jesse Tapia. I will be back tomorrow to talk to you about Game 3, so stay tuned for that, and I will talk to you guys later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.